Hey guys, this is Keenan Fry and you're watching The Acid Drip. So right now we're under the awning. Normally I have a golden rule where I don't work on glass tables because you know, here's a really heavy metal file and all that, and it's really easy to damage the table. But today we're gonna actually work on the table because over there I've got the spray painted parts drying. Plus I kind of want to stay out of the sun while I'm hanging out. So what we're going to do is we are going to get this guitar going. We are going to vandalize this guitar. It's a perfectly fine Gibson, and by perfectly fine I mean like it's stock. There's nothing actually like wrong with it, but I'm going to modify it. I'm going to work on the neck a little bit. There is a little bit of rust on the frets, so I'm definitely going to clean up the frets and do some stuff to clean this guitar up. There's definitely a bunch of crap on here. I put it in storage for a short period of time because I just wasn't using it, and yeah, so I put it in storage, and man, quality on Gibson has really gone down. Like, these should be stainless steel frets. This rust that's on here should come off. The rust is from the strings, and so it's highly likely that it's just gonna rub off when I brush it. But I'm not sure about that. We'll see. So what are we gonna do? Okay, how are we gonna start this? Okay, so you can't see it on here, but I've made some marks along the neck where I roughly want to cut it. I made those marks like 3 years ago when I first got this guitar, because I was like, I'm going to modify this and make it the most epic guitar ever. And wow, holy shit, 3 years went by and I never worked on this guitar. But today we're going to do it. So how are we going to go about it? Well, generally speaking, you kind of just have to go at it. The first part really requires a bit of courage and a lot of patience, and yeah, so let's see, can you see? Yeah, you can see everything. Okay, good. All right, let's go for it. Here we go. No turning back. I am now filing away. So we talked about this when I was doing the Explorer, that this process is very painstaking, and it's best to take your time with it, because if you rush this, you will regret it. One of the things you got to do, because you know you are obviously modifying a piece of wood, is you got to go with the grain. So I'm actually going to reverse this. I'm going to work it more like this. So Flying Vs are kind of awkward because of their shape. They're a really good standing guitar. They're not a very good sitting guitar. So I'm not really going to worry about tummy cutting this. That's not my goal with this guitar. The goal is to just make the neck a little bit more sleek on the back end, where not the center part, but on the top side where my thumb goes. And my goal is to just do really long, slow strokes like I told you last time, and just gently shave it down. So that's what we're doing right now. We are just shaping the wood, and this whole process is very time consuming, and it just requires a lot of patience. So I got the towel down to protect the glass table, and at one point or another we'll probably lay this guitar down on the towel using the stand. But right now I'm letting the pins that I sprayed down earlier dry. In fact, they should be dry by now, so very soon I'm going to pause the video and go grab the stand and start working on it there. But for now, I'll just hold this and do it like so. So yeah, it's a nice Saturday morning. I'm just working on my guitar, and it's like a really nice way to just spend my day, kind of like cathartic, sort of mental, emotional release. I really like working with my hands, and I like doing things that are creative. It's really easy for a process like this to become destructive, like you overwork it and you know, take too much material off. So you have to be very careful and very slow going and patient. It's kind of meditative in a sense, because you have to kind of like not zone out, but what I think is more of an accurate description is zone in. You kind of like zone into what it is you're doing. You know, you just really focus on this part of the process, like really keeping your strokes nice and clean, trying to evenly remove material, and then, you know, as you get further and further up, dragging it all the way into the neck. Again, you know, I'm going to go all the way to the edge of the headstock and then into the headstock a little bit. That's how you really get it smooth. A lot of you guys will think this is blasphemy. I'm basically destroying a Gibson, but you know, it's my guitar. I spent my money on it. I'll do whatever the hell I want with it. And you know, I make that call myself. I really don't like the whole collector mindset. I like the idea that like you get something to use it. I mean, I understand if you buy like an Ace Frehley Ibanez Iceman or whatever, and you want to like keep it in mint condition, you know, those are really expensive guitars. I would probably never buy one of those, but like something comparable to that would be if I bought like a Brent Hines limited edition Flying V Silverburst from Epiphone. I'd probably just keep that in factory condition and just not touch it. I'd like play it a little bit, but it would mostly be a wall ornament, to be honest with you. That's why I never bought one. I love them to death. I absolutely covet them. I 100% unconditionally covet having one of those, but I would never end up actually playing it because I'd, you know, end up babying it too much and trying to protect it. And the only guitars I really play are the ones that I modify. You know, that's why I really think like you have to be invested in your instrument. It's like if you're not invested in your instrument, you're not going to be motivated to play. You know, that's something I noticed about myself this week is I was having some trouble finding the motivation to practice. And I was reflecting on that this morning because I was trying to do my morning workout. I do, normally speaking, 200 sit-ups and then 6 minutes worth of planks. That's what I've been doing for the last 60 days, which is really good. It's a new habit, and I really like the fact that I was doing that for a while, but these last few days it's been tough. And it's largely because I'm on summer vacation, and it's very easy for me to slip into old habits like staying up until like 2 in the morning working. Really, like I stay up until 2 in the morning watching YouTube videos, kind of dicking around. And you know, that's an old bad habit that I'm trying to get out of because it's just not productive. In the past, I used to stay up until like 7 in the morning. I'd start practicing guitar around 11 o'clock, and I would literally go until goddamn 7 in the morning like a crazy person. And I would go to bed at 7 and then like get up at like 1. And like my friend Zach, he sleeps in usually on weekends. And so like a couple of my buddies make fun of him, you know, like, oh, Zach, when did you get up? You know, 12 o'clock, 11:30, you know? And people bug him about that. But like I used to sleep in worse than that, but it was because I was crazy and I was staying up all night. And like I used to justify it because it's like, oh, well, I'm practicing, so it's okay. But really, like, it was just kind of like anxiety and like manic behavior, and it was like really deconstructive for my mental like balance. It, you know, it's one of those things where when you stay up all night, even if you're like pulling an all-nighter to be productive, it really fucks with you because in the long term your sleep habit gets all thrown off. You know, there's really, in my opinion, nothing more important than good regulated sleep. Like, even if you have regulated sleep where it's like, you know, you're getting 6 hours, which is like pretty much the bare minimum to get, but you're always getting 6 hours at the same time of day, and like every day you get those 6 hours, you can very quickly learn to function on that, and it's actually like very, very useful, and you will find yourself like more energized than you were before with fewer hours of sleep, just because you have a really good like biological clock and regimented schedule. And I want to maintain that. Like, one of the things I'm really grateful for with having a steady job is like I have to show up to work at a regular time. Back when I was working in the music industry, everything was kind of chaos. It was like on your own hours. I had a boss who would call me up I would go to bed at 1 in the morning from working on a project, and my boss would literally call me at goddamn 4 in the morning because he had a meeting at 5 in the morning with somebody from New York, because 5 a.m. here is 8 a.m. there. So he'd call me at goddamn 4 in the morning because it's like 7 a.m. there, and he'd call me and say, hey, we need to go over the notes for the meeting. And I'm like, dude, I sent you this crap 2 weeks ago. But he'd like not read any of it and then demand that I explain it to him. And it's like, it was chaos. I hated that. Hang on a second. So yeah, it was chaos, you know, when I worked in the industry. And like I'd go to bed at 1 from working up all night on a project, and then I'd try and like practice some guitar, and I'd feel like dog shit, and I'd practice like dog shit. Speaking of dogs, come here, Guinness, say hi. Hey there, buddy. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, 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 hey. Oh, yeah, you're just a sweetie. All right, go on, go on. So, I'd feel like dog shit, and I'd be like trying to practice, and you know, go to bed at like 1 in the morning and get up at like goddamn 4 in the morning for my asshole boss. And I just got bloody fucking tired of it. And I had like absolutely no regimented schedule. There was no ability for me to like do anything relatively reliably. And it's like, yeah, you know, I didn't have to show up at work in the morning, you know. It's like, oh, you choose your own hours, you set your own schedule, but like actually it's like a total like backlash. Like I had a friend, Tall Drew, who worked for a particular company where they're like, oh, we have like unscheduled, you know, unlimited employee like paid time off. But then like because he worked for a company that had that as their sort of like policy, they would like guilt trip him into not taking his time off. And he was like, yeah, so like on the down low, it was actually a scam to make you work harder. That's what he told me about this particular tech company he worked for. And I was at first surprised by that, but then I thought about it, and it was kind of like the same exact thing I went through at the music industry, where I was working for people and they're like, oh yeah, we don't have an office. You work local, you know, from your home. And like we have phone conversations and we'll check in with you, and you'll just, you know, you'll just do these weekly check-ins, and then like weekly check-ins didn't really regularly happen when they were supposed to. Like they were supposed to be scheduled, and then like they just randomly happened, and I'd get like a call like early in the morning saying like, hey, we're gonna have a meeting, you have to be ready. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like no notice, no anything. Like how am I gonna be ready for that? It's like, at least if you schedule the meeting, I know like, okay, I have to have X, Y, and Z ready by the time of that meeting. But like there was no notice. It was just like the day of, like, hey, we're doing this, you got to be ready. And it's like, what the hell? And all that chaos just made me like, when I look back on that time, it made me really anxious and neurotic, and like I couldn't predict anything that was going on in my life. And I was like, oh yeah, though, I work in the music industry and it's so cool, and I'm so cool because like, you know, I'm a musician and I'm working in the industry, and like, yeah, you know, this is the greatest thing ever. And it was like the biggest pile of bullshit, you know. And I'm really grateful for my current job, because they're like, no, you have to be here at this time. You have to take break at this time. You know, you leave at this time. You're expected to do X, Y, and Z at these times. And it's like, if you asked me, you know, 5 years ago, if I saw myself in my current job today, I'd say hell no. But if you ask me now, if I see myself in the music industry, well, you know, surviving 5 years in the industry, like today, my answer would be no. But like 5 years ago, if you asked me that, I'd say hell yeah. And that's because I was kind of like ignorant. You know, I didn't really like realize like how valuable a regiment is. So one of the things that I've realized now that like I'm on summer vacation and I've spent a full year at like a regular day job, is that like I really appreciate the schedule. And like I'm kind of afraid of summer vacation, because like on one hand, it's like it's Candyland where I can just do whatever the hell it is I want. And if I'm like super motivated and focused, I can get a hell of a lot of shit done. Holy crap, it's windy out. It's just blowing the crap out of that umbrella. So yeah, on one hand I can get a hell of a lot of shit done, and on the other hand it's like everything can completely unravel around me if I'm not, you know, focused, and like I don't commit to a schedule and a routine. It's like summer vacation will be as productive as I am disciplined. The more disciplined I am about maintaining a regimen and a schedule, the more productive my summer vacation will be. And the more like haphazard I am about things, the more chaotic it is. So I kind of came to that realization, and I've also come to a few other kind of like realizations as well about, you know, my goals for the summer. So first off, I'm not going to stay up past pretty much 1 a.m. Sometimes I go to bed after midnight, and like that happens, and I'm okay with that, but I really don't want to be up past 1. Like I want to be gearing up for bed no later than 12:30, and like in bed going to sleep at 1. And that means like not in bed at 1 a.m. looking at my cell phone or whatever, but like in bed, like closing my eyes before 1 and like trying to be asleep by 1. Like 12:30, brush your teeth, get changed, in bed by 12:45, trying to go to sleep. No cell phone, no fucking bullshit technology, just close your eyes, meditate on the day, think about what you're gonna do tomorrow, and go to goddamn sleep. Because like I think if I can actually maintain a habit like that, I will be super, super productive this summer, because I will be able to get everything that I want done. And the reason is because I will be able to wake up in the morning and not feel like dog shit. Because lately I have felt like dog shit when I wake up. And it's because I have been waking up super inconsistently. And then I've been napping in the afternoon. I did that the other day. I napped on Friday because I got up. I went to bed Friday at like 3 in the morning. I got up at 8 a.m. I filmed a bunch of stuff and was like really productive in the morning for like 2 hours. And then I totally crashed and burned and slept like 3 hours in the afternoon. And it was like the biggest waste of a day. And I just like lost all my momentum for the day. And like it was really hard to practice or do anything productive. And I just wanted to like watch TV or YouTube and just zone out, because I was just like totally psychologically exhausted. Also, like I haven't been running at all. Like I've now had an entire week of summer vacation and I have not gone for a single goddamn run. And like I am not happy with myself for doing that. So, you know, I need to be running, because I am a very high-strung, high-anxiety person, and running is a very positive outlet for me if I do it in, you know, moderation, not you know, crazy amounts of running, but just enough of it. And I function really well. I do really well for myself. So that's something else. So what I'm going to try and do is get up every morning at 7. If I can go to bed before 1 and really be going to bed at, you know, really I should be going to bed at like midnight, but I'll give myself a little bit of leeway and say 1, and be like, you know, trying to gear up for sleep around like really like 12:20, 12:15, if I'm lucky at 12:15, and trying to get into bed, you know, before 12:45, and trying to sleep. It's funny because like on one hand it's like, you know, like, oh, I'm trying to go to bed early, and everybody's like, oh, I want to stay up all night. That's what you want to do when you're young, and you're like, yeah, I just want to stay up all night and do this. Like I always wanted to stay up all night and practice guitar. I thought it was like the best use of my time ever, and now it's like that is the worst use of my time ever, is staying up all night practicing guitar. It's much better to get up in the morning, exercise, doing my sit-ups and my planks, and then go about the rest of my day immediately afterwards. Like get straight up out of bed, not spend like 20 minutes in bed looking at my phone trying to like motivate myself, but just get up. Like the alarm goes off and I snap up out of bed and just hit the floor and start doing my goddamn sit-ups, and immediately go into my planks. It's like, it shouldn't take me 45 minutes to do 200 sit-ups and 6 minutes of planks. It should take me like 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, you know. but like now I'm like really slow getting up, and I'm really slow like finishing it, and I want to wait in between sets of sit-ups, and it's like it defeats the purpose. The whole purpose is that like the sit-ups produce cardio, and you're like up and energized, and you you know, get yourself going. And like you can't have cardio, you can't have a productive cardio session if you aren't getting your heart rate elevated, you know. And like sitting there and chilling out in between, you know, chilling out in between sessions is not the way to really get anything done. So yeah. So today I'm kind of like taking a little bit of time off for myself. I've kind of realized that like my habits haven't been very good. I don't really want to blame myself for it because it's like it's summer vacation, and this is the first time I've really like had a regiment before, and you know, I really want to get back on it. So like I don't blame myself for falling off the horse. However, if I don't get back on the horse, that's something to blame myself for. So my goal isn't to beat myself up and you know, berate myself. My goal is to encourage myself to get back on the horse and be, you know, focused and motivated. So today I'm just gonna work on this. I'm gonna do some photo editing and some graphic design work. I'm gonna do a little bit of light guitar practice because my arm is a little bit sore from all the scale work that I've been doing. And then I am going to call it quits early tonight and go to bed. And I am going to inform my client, John and Mel, that I will not be ready to sign the contract tomorrow, which is a kind of consequence. There is a consequence to this. There is a consequence to everything. I'm going to inform them I'm not going to be ready to sign it, that we're just going to do a contract review tomorrow. On one hand, like I want to sign the contract sooner than later so I can start getting paid sooner rather than later. But on the other hand, like I'm not ready to sign it because I don't have the contract fully laid out in InDesign. I have written the entire contract and I have sent them the written document. So they already have like the written contract and they already know like what my terms are. So that part, like I did the hard work part, the writing of the thing. Now I have to do the layout, and I started the layout yesterday, but like goddamn, I lost all my productivity and motivation yesterday. I was super burnt out and I was just not really in the mood to do anything. So I think like I'm gonna take that as a sign that I have like, you know, persistent burnout, and that I need to take like a little bit of time to sort of readjust to this new schedule that I'm on and readjust to summer vacation and not be so brutal on myself. I am going to edit some photos today because I told the people over at Trace that I would get all of the graduation photos done, and I did not edit photos yesterday, and I told them I would get the photos done by Wednesday, and I am super glad I gave myself more time for that project. Because at first I was like, oh, I can get this done super fast. You know, maybe I can have it done by Monday. And it's like, I'm going to tell them Wednesday, though, just to be safe. And I'm super glad I did that. Because I'm not going to have it done by Monday, but I can get through most of it by Monday. So I did the initial 21 photos. I sent them the first half of 21 photos. I've done an additional 12. So I've got 33 photos done, and I'm going to send them something like 45. So I've got like another 13 photos to do. So if I do 3 photos a day, I can have them done probably by like Tuesday or something like that. And that means I'll still be on track for sending everything in by Wednesday, and I won't have to sweat it. You know, I can just slow down. I can get that job done. I can send it in. People will be happy. It's still before the 3-week deadline because last Wednesday was the graduation. So we had, or not last Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays ago. So we had 1 full week as of this Wednesday. Next week will be 2 weeks. And I told them I'd get it done in 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm going to get it done in 2 weeks. exactly, and I'm really happy about that. I chipped away at it bit by bit. I did like a really crazy 8-hour photo editing day where I drove myself nuts and I got like 20 of them done. I did a pretty good job, and now I'm like doing 3 at a time. I work on it for like, you know, maybe an hour or 2 per day, and I've been grinding them out, and I'm happier with that rate of productivity. It's slower, it's a lot more steady, but it's like psychologically more manageable because I'm not like throwing myself off of a cliff trying to, you know, get this shit done. So I'm really happy about that. So the photos will get done. The contract is what the client needs to see in order to understand the contract is already done. I got that done on Thursday. I'm gonna get it fully laid out and professionally organized, and then maybe next week they can sign it and I can get paid. Or maybe I just give them 2 weeks to prepare the deposit. You know, it depends on whatever it is they say. You know, if I hand them this contract and I say, this is the rough draft, do you want to do any revisions, and give them a chance to think if they want to revise anything. And then, you know, maybe they ask me to make a revision, then like giving them 2 weeks between, you know, the initial review of the contract and the actual signing of it could actually be a very valid step. And instead of like rushing into this, giving myself a little bit more time might actually make the process actually more comfortable for my client. I'm still learning this whole process. You know, I'm going through this whole learning process myself as well. It's not like I know everything about, you know, being a small businessman. I mean, I know a thing or two, but I'm still learning. Holy shit, it is windy. I've got this umbrella thing up and it's like about to blow over, but it's mounted like really deeply to the table. But it's kind of funny how like this thing is just being blown around in circles. Especially because like for the last few days there's been no wind and just dry, flat, hot heat. And now it's like super windy and I can feel the ocean breeze because it's very cool. It's not like a hot breeze, it's a cool breeze, so that means it's coming off of the water. And I actually kind of like this weather, maybe a little less windy, but I like this weather. So anyway, with all that ranting out of the way, let me show you what we've got so far. So let me get it a little bit closer so you guys can see what's going on. Okay, so let's start right here. So this end is still a little bit rough. I'm gonna focus this a little bit. There we go. So this end is a little bit rough and I need to taper it all the way. Here we go. I need to taper this all the way into the edge. So all of this right here still needs to come out. And that's because you really want a smooth transfer into the edge right here. If you try and taper it up into that corner, you're gonna have this weird little like triangle of like old finish right here. And you really just wanna strip everything off of here. So I'm gonna very lightly do this portion, but this is pretty much what it's gonna look like. There's a little bit more that I'm gonna take off of the heel here, and that will flatten this part out. I really wanna take some meat out of this spot right here where my finger is touching. This is where I really need to take the most meat out of the wood. Holy shit. The umbrella was like literally blowing up out of the slot. That's hilarious. Holy shit, it is windy. I'm gonna do as much of this as I can right now. I know that the wind is kind of distracting, but I'm gonna try and do as much of this as I can. It's a nice day. I'm enjoying myself, even though it's like super windy. There's probably gonna be some wind noise in this video. I apologize. I will do the best I can to use my EQ settings on Adobe Premiere to remove the wind, but we'll see. So right now I'm gonna hog out the heel a bit more because I'm not happy with it and I want it to be a little bit more thinned out. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna try and like really focus on balancing my schedule. I think that productivity is a byproduct of a good attitude. Like, if you want to be really productive, you can't be bitter and pissed off. And like lately I've been kind of pissed off and like burnt out, and like noticeably more so than when I was working at Trace, which is really funny because like I should be feeling super relaxed and like happy because I'm on vacation, and yet like I'm still like totally burnt out and kind of pissed off. So that definitely means that like whatever's bugging me is a byproduct of my own environment and circumstances, and that means that I really need to reevaluate my behavior. And I think that starts with me reassessing my sleeping and working schedule. Technically right now, like if I wanted to be like, you know, crazy and manic, I would be designing my contract, like designing the layout of it. But I've already laid out the 20 odd pages in InDesign. I've already put in the rough master style sheet. I've got a couple of things to add to the style sheet, but I've already added a bunch of stuff to it. Holy shit. So I'm not really tripping out about it. I'll be able to finish it next week with plenty of time. It's not like next week I'm going to be like, oh, you know, it's Saturday and my contract isn't ready. It's like I'm going to chip away at it again, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that's if they want to meet up next week, Sunday, to sign, which, to be honest with you, I'm probably going to just ask them for another 2 weeks before we sign and just take our time. I really want to take my time with this job and not stress out about anything. I think one of the things that happened to me is I felt like I had overbooked myself this summer, and that I had to just wind sprint through everything to get to the finish line. And I really like overworked myself this week. And it's like the first week of summer vacation when you should be like chilling out and relaxing and trying to like decompress. And I went into overdrive. You know, I was working crazy hard, and like I got my contract done and I'm super proud of that. But like all the other things I needed to do were kind of like honestly busy work. Even the work I was doing on my guitar to finish the Explorer was kind of busy work, but it was busy work that I really wanted to do. And same thing with this Flying V. It's kind of like busy work, but it's also like helping me meditate and reflect and like I guess get a sense of perspective. A perspective of my priorities. That's why I really like these projects. It's like if you're slow and you're steady and you have other things to think about while you're working, it's a really good means of like, you know, perspective checking your world. You know, it's really important to perspective check to see if, you know, the work you're doing is aligning with your goals. If like you're really doing what you should be doing with your time. Because time is limited, you know. We all die, so you have to be as productive as you can be while you live. That doesn't mean you have to be like crazy and like manic every moment, but you have to have time that's allotted for, you know, recreation, and then time that's allotted for like, you know, work. I missed part of the Warriors game, their last playoff game, and my dad was watching it. I should have sat down and watched the whole thing with him, but it was because I was working on projects. And, you know, like, that was a thing where I should have just stopped what I was doing and said, you know, fuck this. I'm going to sit down with my dad, have a beer, and, like, chill out and watch the game. But I was like, oh, I got to work. Oh, my God, I got all this shit to do. And I regret that a little bit. But I'm going to spend time with him a little bit on Sunday for Father's Day. And we're going to still do shit. So, like, it's not the end of the world. And I did watch part of the game, at least with him. But, like, I don't know, having perspective so that you can enjoy those kinds of moments, those small moments that you have with the people in your life who matter, you know, that's really important, because like your time with them is actually relatively limited. You know, I'm really grateful that my job gives me summer vacation. On one hand, it lets me like work on my projects and like, you know, have a dedicated, you know, quarter of the year where I just, you know, can kind of tell everyone to fuck off and do my own thing. And on the same time, like, it also gives me time to spend with my family. And I really, like, appreciate the fact that, like, my job allows me that. If I was still working in the music industry, I would be like crazy manic, working all the time, irrational, insane hours, you know, and I'd probably be missing holidays and all kinds of stuff just because of that, you know. I'm not really interested in that side of the industry where it's just super demanding and exhausting, and it's like a giant like treadmill grind. And it's like, okay, you have one option, which is, you know, you survive 15, 20 years and then you eke out a living after that. Or the other option is like you're born into it and you have all the cards handed to you from the beginning. You know, I don't like that side of the industry. I think the only way to succeed inside the music industry is to actually approach the industry from the outside, where like you build everything yourself from the ground up. You take your time and you go about it very slowly, and you have that steady outside day job that pays your bills while you try and break into the industry. Everybody that I've ever seen who's entered the industry from the outside has been very happy with the results, and anybody I've seen try and enter the industry from the inside has just burnt out, or like they have what they thought they wanted but it really wasn't what they wanted, and they have buyer's remorse. The worst situation is when you have buyer's remorse and you won't admit to it because you're too proud and arrogant. I've seen guys like that, like, oh yeah, I bought this thing and I totally don't regret it, but it's like, it's obvious that they do and that they wish they had gone a different route. They won't fucking admit to it because that means, you know, admitting to fault and admitting that maybe they didn't make the best decisions with their time. Which brings me back to this song by Animal Collective. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can't remember it, but there's a song, and one of their lyrics is, "I take my time." And I really admire that. You know, and then they've got this other song by Animal Collective called My Girls, where it's like, I just want an Adobe flat for my girls. I don't want to seem like I care about material things. I just want 4 walls and an Adobe flat for my girls. You know, the guy's like a dad, and he's just like, I want to be able to provide for my family. You know, I don't want to seem materialistic. I just want to be able to provide. And I want to be able to provide by making music, doing this thing that I love. That's basically what that song is all about. It's a really awesome song. It's probably my favorite Animal Collective song. It's off of Merriweather Post Pavilion, which is like probably their best album in my opinion. Came out in like 2009 or 10, something like that. Really fucking good album. This girl that I knew in high school actually introduced me to Animal Collective. She was the one playing that album for me. I can't remember her name, but I can kind of see her face in my mind. And we were hanging out, and you know, she played that record for me. And years later, I ran into this girl named Ola from like OLA, not Ola like the Spanish Ola with an H, but Ola with an OLA. She was like Norwegian or something like that. And she was a dance major at San Jose State. And she worked at she worked as a barista at what was it called? Fiscati, Cafe Fiscati. And I was going through a really depressed period of my life when I was in my early 20s. I was 19, 20. It was like a really dark period of my life. I was a junior in college. And she gave me a bunch of music, and on it was some Animal Collective. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember this band. I've heard of them before. And it had been years since I had listened to Merriweather Post Pavilion. I hadn't really like taken that record seriously because I was in my death metal phase where I only listened to Behemoth and like, you know, Lamb of God and Mastodon and Tool and I don't know, Belphegor and other heavy shit. You know, I was only listening to heavy stuff. Decapitated, Meshuggah, you know, heavy shit. and I went through a really bad depression, and listening to Animal Collective helped me get out of it. It's kind of funny how that happened. You know, music is very sacred to me because it can be very like cathartic and healing, and like the process of listening to really good music that slows you down and kind of forces you to slow down, like that really forces you to slow down. It's like kind of like what I'm doing right here, this job. In order to do it well, this filing, and to get like a really good clean file, I have to go really slow. Anything that forces you to kind of like meditatively slow down is really valuable because it helps you gain that perspective that you need to do the other things in life that, you know, are difficult and require a lot of discipline and diligence. And it's like the things that give us perspective are the things that enable us to do the other difficult tasks. So for this part, I'm going to show you the trick. I'm using the side of my finger, and I'm running the side of my finger. I'm going to show you. I'm running the side of my finger along the edge of the fretboard, and as I run my finger there, I anchor my thumb onto the file, and as I run my finger along it, the file moves along it. And this is how you create a straight line on your neck. You run your finger along the edge of the fretboard. The fretboard is obviously a straight line, this edge right here of the fretboard. So if your thumb and finger are very firmly anchored onto the file, and you don't let that file move, and you go really slow up the fretboard, your finger is naturally going to guide you, and thereby naturally guide the file in a straight line. And that's how you get a straight line, to get this nice clean edge. Because you want a clean edge. You don't want a bunch of divots in here where it looks like all wonky and uneven. So you have to really hold the file down, and you go really goddamn slow, and you just see how it's like that, and the edge of the file just naturally goes in that way. And if you need to feed it up a little bit more, you know, feed the edge of the file up a little bit and it goes up. See, like right here, I can't really use my finger to guide it because this is the heel joint area. So here I'm going to eyeball it a little bit, but to try and make it more uniform with the neck, the middle section of the neck. But once I get through this part and I get onto the actual back side of the neck where I'm like working this area, I'm going to just use my finger to guide myself all the way through it. And that's how you get it. And you're just naturally following it, and you just take a long stroke that goes all the way up. Fucking A, man. So there you go. And now that looks really clean, and any unevenness that's on here I will be able to fix with the sanding block, this guy right here. In fact, I'm going to kind of jump a grit because I'm going to try and smoothen this out because there's a lot of hair on this, and I want to get the hair off. So you always want to get the hair off of the neck. The hair is the loose grain. Holy crap! I'm like trying to hold the guitar and this at the same time. I think I'm going to call it quits for now, and I'm going to fold this in. The wind's too strong. I'm going to get the hair off of this real quick though. I'm going to get the hair off, and then I will call it quits. And then in the early evening, hopefully when the wind has died down, I will come back out and just get a little bit of this off though. All right, so it's not as far along as I'd like to get, but that's okay. I got a chance to work on it. I feel better about things. I feel calm. And yeah, you know, that's all that matters. Gotta take a little bit of meat off of this part down here still. See if I can get a little bit more off of this. You know what, it's not worth it doing it right now. It's too windy. It's kind of like impossible for me to do this while the awning is blowing around, or the umbrella is blowing around. This thing is like ridiculously strong. So I'm going to call it and I'll come back later on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me. I'll see you guys soon. This is the Acid Drip.